March Madness is one weekend away, but first, 68 teams will discover where and who they'll play against this Selection Sunday as they compete for the national championship. Here to give us a preview is CBS Sports college basketball analyst Gary Parrish. Gary, walk us through your top 4 seeds and who's got the best chance of winning.
I think right now it's pretty clear that the number 1 seeds on Selection Sunday, there's going to be 4 of them, and there's 5 schools really competing for that. It's Houston, Alabama, UCLA, Purdue, and Kansas. Catherine, I would assume, based on the bodies of work, that Houston, Alabama, and Kansas are pretty much locked in as number 1 seeds. And so now we're trying to figure out who the last one would be. Would it be Purdue or UCLA? And though I could argue that the Bruins have a better body of work in this moment in time, it is also true that they just lost their second leading scorer and second leading rebounder to a season-ending injury. His name's Jalen Clark. So the selection committee will know UCLA is going to have to go into the NCAA tournament without that player, and that could be the type of thing that serves as a de facto tiebreaker between UCLA and any other potential number 1 seed. That's why I would lean toward, at this point, Houston, Alabama, Purdue, and Kansas being number 1 seeds, and UCLA being a number 2.
So speaking of Alabama, what's the latest on the Brandon Miller situation?
Well, his former teammate, Darius Miles, and a friend of Darius Miles were earlier today indicted on capital murder charges in connection with the shooting death of a 23-year-old mother back in January. Brandon Miller, we found out recently, was at least loosely connected to that tragedy / crime because he is the person who drove the gun to the scene where shortly after he arrived, it was used to commit this killing. And Alabama, of course, has never publicly punished Brandon Miller in any way whatsoever for the role he's played, again, in that tragedy. A lot of people, myself included, have for a while suggested that at the very least, Brandon Miller was driving around Tuscaloosa around 2 a.m. with a loaded gun in his car. That should be a violation of policy, guideline, rule, something that brings about some sort of discipline within a men's college basketball program. But Nate Oates and his administration have consistently said they think they handled this properly. Brandon Miller did not deserve to be punished. And so what was a great story, the Brandon Miller story at Alabama, is now undeniably the most controversial story in college sports. And the further Alabama goes in this NCAA tournament, and they are good enough to go all the way to the first Monday night in April and play for the national title, the bigger that story is going to get.
As you know, since 1985, North Carolina may become the first preseason number 1 to miss the NCAA tournament. What do you think happened here?
Catherine, it's complicated because this is a team that played for the national championship last season and then returned 4 starters from that team. They lost Brady Manick. They replaced him with a similar player in Pete Nance, and most, including myself, thought that they would be legitimate contenders to win the 2023 NCAA tournament. That's why they were voted preseason number 1. And honestly, they never looked anything close to that all season. This isn't a situation where they got off to a good start and then struggled, or got off to a bad start and then got good, but the bad start was too much to overcome. They were mediocre basically every month of the season. And when they lost in the ACC tournament on Thursday, they pretty much put themselves in a position where, yes, the first time in modern history, since the tournament expanded to 64 teams in 1985, North Carolina is going to be the first preseason number 1 to miss the field of 68. It's not definite at this point, but certainly all the data points in that direction.
Gary Parrish, thanks for your expertise.
Thank you, Catherine.